Okay, so thank you for waiting. Thank you for the patience. And our next talk here is the topic is going to be supporting open design and Bitcoin. Bitcoin design community is an open source community with the goal of making Bitcoin more intuitive and accessible. And the presentation today will provide an overview of how they worked and what hasn't worked for them, and maybe a little bit overview of the community efforts, and maybe a little bit about what's the future hold for Bitcoin design community. I am personally very excited for this talk because I'm also a designer, and I also participate in community and unfortunately lost some money in Bitcoin. So hopefully I would like to learn something from these speakers today. Today we will have two speakers joining us with a recording video, and then afterwards we will have a live Q&A with them. One of the speaker is Christoph Ono. He is a seasoned UX designer focused on improving the user experience of Bitcoin and promoting open design collaboration. And then we also have a second speaker, Jones Behari. I'm not sure if I pronounced the name wrong, but Jones is a designer and software engineer from the Caribbean, and he's working at Peak Shift, sorry. And Peak Shift is a digital agency focused on working with Bitcoin companies to solve their difficult UX problems. So please welcome the speakers.
Hey everyone, my name is John Spihari. I'm from the Bitcoin design community, and I'm joined today by Christoph Ono, and we're going to be talking to you about how we're supporting open design in Bitcoin. So let's get to it. First off, what is Bitcoin? Well, some people say it's magic internet money. Other people say it's a decentralized network of value transfer. So what does decentralization mean anyway? It essentially means that no single entity can change the rules of the network. And some of the rules that they have are like 21 million Bitcoin. They should only be 21 million Bitcoin. If someone wants to change that, that has to get all the computers which are connected to this network have to agree. And if they don't, then it's not possible to change. Now, the other thing that Bitcoin is, it's an open source software and it's community driven, and which is relevant to what we're talking about here, about open design and open source. But let's start at the beginning. How did this all start? So in 2008, Satoshi Nakamoto released a white paper. This was around October, and the white paper described architecture for a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. A few months later, in January 2009, a first version of the software was released, open source of course, and then one person downloaded it and connected to Satoshi's computer. And slowly, the network started to grow and grow. And to this day, fun fact, 14 years later, there are two countries in the world which are using Bitcoin as their national currencies. So I think that says something about the value proposition of this technology. It's El Salvador and Central African Republic. But I want to talk to you about design, right? So we have this Bitcoin design community, and we realize that, not many times do designers get a place in open source because a lot of the processes don't really work for them, right? The tools don't really work for them either, as they do for developers. It's a lot more robust ecosystem there. So what was starting to happen is that, people, designers were working in their silos, separate from one another, and solving some of the same problems on the different companies and open source projects. The same problems were being solved, but no one was sharing this information with one another. So we decided, hey, why don't we create a space? So few people got together and started creating like some structure for what a Bitcoin design community could look like, and like what our mission is and how we want to kind of like run such a group, such a community. And one of the important principles, especially for designers who might not have been in open source before, is to explain not only the concept of open source, but like the concept that like when you create something, it's not just for yourself, because it's for the wider community. It can have impact in the wider community. And, the things that you end up using is from someone else because they were willing to share it. And so this kind of like sharing philosophy is super important, as well as learning in public. So as people started to come into the community and it started to grow, well, there's different motivations and interests that people have on why they want to be part of this, right? Why do they want to be a part of the community? But it doesn't matter if you have like whatever you're interested in on or wherever your focus is, because at some point, all the things that we're doing are intersecting with one another. The large body in which we're working in, of course, is on the topic of Bitcoin. We're trying to our motto actually is designing Bitcoin for everyone. So, the different communities and the different aspects of it, they get to, intersect and share knowledge with one another and their different perspectives. And this is like super important, but it's also very organic how it comes about. And we always try to make this an inclusive process as possible, right? Create a friendly environment. So, whether you're a developer or a user researcher, a designer, or artist, creative, whatever, we hope this is a place for you to come in and learn and share what you are learning and your solutions and whatnot, so we could go towards our larger mission. Now, so far I've been talking very abstract about our community. I want to talk about how we have certain things set up right now. So these are some of the tools that we use. GC, for example, it's a free call server in which you're able to, record calls and do online meetings. You don't need to sign up or anything, so it's privacy preserving in this kind of way. We use Substack for our newsletter. Bitcoin TV is basically like a Bitcoin YouTube. But let's get started with Slack. I want to talk about this one because that's where it's basically our meeting point for everything in the community. That's where all our conversations happen. Right now, we're 3,300 folks in the Slack. So sometimes it gets busy. There's a bunch of channels. But one thing we have, as Christoph likes to say, is collective amnesia. Because of the restricted pricing models of a tool like Slack, even though it has like really great user experience because in the mobile app and the desktop app and stuff like that, and like designers are already there, it's already installed in on a lot of people's devices. It has like some restricted pricing that open source community that's not making any money isn't able to access. So we are looking at like other options, like Discord, for instance, or maybe some open source versions. So whilst all our conversations are happening in Slack, sometimes we realize, sometime very early we realized that we wanted to kind of have like some face-to-face. And we realized that these calls, like on Jitsi that we go hop on, they're really great to start creating bonds and friendships with people. I personally have made a ton of friends in the Bitcoin design community. You just hop on a call and, whether you're new, whether you have something to say or not, you just hop in and just interact, For some people who aren't able to make those calls, we record them and we put them on Bitcoin TV and YouTube. This is important, again, going to the inclusivity kind of principle that we have. We want people who are not able to be there on a specific time zone, or maybe they have work, to at least be able to know what's going on so that we're transparent and we're not hiding anything. We also have a calendar with all these events happening. It's good to keep track of it. You can check it out at bitcoin.design/calendar. And you subscribe to it in your favorite calendar application, and you'll get notifications of whatever events, whether it's community call or different workshops and stuff. Now, all the stuff that's happening, you saw the list of calls, you saw a bunch of messages in Slack. Now, how do you keep track of all these things if you don't have so much time, right? You might get some FOMO because there's some really exciting stuff happening there. So what we decided to do was to create a monthly digest newsletter um, which kind of summarizes things that are happening in calls, different projects, people who are seeking help, or things that are happening in the Bitcoin Design Guide. It's like an easy to digest format of like what happened in the past 3 weeks. We publish it on that time period. Another tool that we tend to use is Figma, and this one kind of came organically. A lot of people were already using Figma within the community. It has like really nice collaborative features, but for like it's suited for like companies, not a community, a design community of 3,000. But we do use this community files feature on Figma, which allows us to like publish a specific resource. And Christoph does a lot of that. You can search on Figma community for Bitcoin design. You'll see a bunch of different resources that people in the community have contributed. And you can basically fork a copy of it and do your iteration and publish it back again. And this is how we kind of like get past some of the limitations of the Figma design software and like the pricing model that they have. Hopefully we see more solutions like Penpot, which is open source and uses a open file format, which is SVG, start to be used. It's at this point replicating some of the core functionalities of Figma. Hopefully we see more open source design tools come out. Now, one of the core things that we do as a community is work on this Bitcoin Design Guide. And what we're doing is we're basically pattern finding. Someone comes up with a solution on how to solve a specific problem. We discuss it, we try to break it apart, and then if it seems like one of the patterns that should be kind of like a best practice, we record it and document it on the Bitcoin Design Guide, which is basically a human interface guidelines for Bitcoin products. And I'll be going through now some of the sections of this design guide. Let's get started with the getting started. So this is for designers who are maybe have no insight into what Bitcoin is. This might be your first interaction with these terms and stuff. So what we try to do, we try to break them down, give you the technical primer, some of the principles and some of the basic terms and stuff that you may need to do if you want to, you may need to understand in order for you to work in this space. Next section we have is designing Bitcoin products, and this is basically some of the foundational stuff. We're getting into a bit more of the nitty-gritty, like units and symbols. Like what are the different symbols to use and when to use them, and some of the like more technical aspects of it. One of my favorite pages there is the interoperability page. It's super important. You're designing software, open source software that's you want them to be able to talk to, you want different wallets and stuff to be able to talk to one another. You want someone to be able to send from their wallet to another branded wallet. Interoperability is super important, so that's something that I reference quite a lot myself. We also have these reference designs. Basically, there are certain kind of use cases that always keep coming up, certain types of products that people are constantly building, like this daily spending wallet. What we do, we kind of like break down the functionalities, the common patterns, and we give our recommendations, which you can reference. You could, if you don't agree with anything, again, you could just open up a pull request and say, hey, this is a better solution or whatever. And for things that are not kind of like defined in the guide as yet, people might need to come up with solutions for their use cases themselves. And it's important for us to be able to equip people to be able to discover new patterns or create solutions for whatever problem that they might be trying to address. And to do so, we need to help them understand some of the more technical aspects of how the protocol works, how different specifications works and stuff. So this is like in this section, we try to still be cognizant that we are, talking to a designer, so it is not so technical, but as like the documentation for the protocol itself, but we try to give nice illustrations and examples of like how these things work. And one of the final things that I'm going to be talking to you about is the Bitcoin UI kit. So again, this is a design guide, right? So we have some resources so that you can quickly get started on mocking up or prototyping your Bitcoin application, your next Bitcoin application. You could copy these design files and components and customize them as you need. You don't need to start from zero. You can make it look however you want. And some people are actually even developing some of these components, so now it could be even easier to build those designs out. Well, that's it for me. I'm going to be passing this on to Christoph now, and he's going to be talking to you about some design activity things. Christoph, take it away.
Thank you, Johns. So we've seen quite a bit of different design activity in the community over the past 2 years, and I'd like to show some of these examples here now. And some of them we've already seen multiple times, and I feel like we've gotten a little bit better about how to go about them. And that is both in terms of our process and our approach, but I think also designers have gotten a little bit more used to helping each other in just the right ways. So branding projects, we've seen maybe at least 5 projects that I'm aware of. And so usually a lot of times it's a very technical effort or a technical team, and they might be early in the project's life cycle, and they might come around and say, well, now we want to be a little bit more public, but we have this logo that somebody just kind of quickly made up or copied from somewhere. We don't have a landing page. We could use some design help here. And the community has gotten pretty good at rallying around this and coming up with initial concepts that are defined into directions, and the direction is refined to kind of define the logo and social media assets and the website and whatnot. And then there are also several developers who come in and then help make this a reality. So I'm really excited. I think this has worked out really well, and we've seen some really good websites go live there. A very different type of thing is when a project comes up and says, well, we have one specific UX problem that we like to resolve in our application. We don't want to look at everything. We just want to discuss this one thing here. And then, we might organize a call, and people might chip in different solutions. There might be a conversation happening. And this particular one here in the screenshot is about the display of multiple currencies in the same application. Because when you take Bitcoin and the subunit, the Satoshi, and the kind of converted unit to a local currency, and then sometimes you need to mix in another currency in the UI, it can get pretty complicated. So I do hope that soon we also have good guidance in the Bitcoin design guide around this. Another project might come around and say, well, we're kind of new, we're just starting up, and our goal is really to have a very good user experience, but we're not quite sure how to do it. So this is more about kicking off the project in the right way, ensuring there's a design process from the beginning and the design sensitivity, and then the things are kind of systematically built up. And you want to get to a point where you also have good design documentation. So what a project needs at the very beginning is very different than it might need later. So later on, design's more mature. Let's say the UI components might change a lot less. It's more about using them in the right ways to improve the user experience and to have that consistency. That's both in terms of what things look like and how you interact with them, but also some of the underlying user experience frameworks and principles that were decided for the particular project. We've seen some good work done there, but I hope we can do a lot more, because it does really simplify the design work over time. A more proactive approach has been Design Sprint. We started this year. We're just about to wrap up our first one, and the idea here is to proactively approach a project and say, hey, let's go through this process together. Let's talk about your whole project, what you want to do, what your goals are, what users are complaining about right now, what they want to see, and then prioritize everything, then pick out some particular user flow that could be improved, and then analyze it, come up with improvements, mock them up, prototype, user test, and then get it through an implementation. All as a larger team, both people from the project, people from the community, and just to take that process from beginning to end. Something we've seen with accessibility is that there are very few people and this might be a thing more broadly, there are very few people who really know what to look for in accessibility and how to do the testing and how to fix all those little issues. Because a lot of us simply do not see them. We're not blind, we don't have certain types of needs, so we're not aware of it. So we did some research and we got a good starting point, and we created a page in the Bitcoin Design Guide for it, and then we're proactively testing different types of Bitcoin wallets and applications. We summarized the feedback, and then we shared with those teams, so they don't necessarily need that expertise. They can just act on those recommendations, and ideally the accessibility level of the Bitcoin ecosystem improves. A similar good way to roll out good standards is our campaigns. So let's say there's a UI pattern that everybody agrees that this is how it should be, this is the future, but it's very, there's a spotty implementation. Then what you can do is create a website with problem, solution, examples, how to improve this, track who already does this the right way, who doesn't, and then you kind of go to all the different projects and say, here's something that should happen. It's a great way for a lot of people to rally around very specific UX improvements in the ecosystem. Summer of Bitcoin is a summer mentoring program for high school and college students. They have been typically, over the last few years, they've been more focused on coding, and this year there's also a design track. So there are 3 designers mentoring students here. Also really exciting thing to observe, and the students are doing really good work. A very different type of project is the Bitcoin icon set, which is basically a series of assets, because Bitcoin applications sometimes have pretty unique icons that they need that are specific to the Bitcoin space that you cannot really get from other icon sets. So we have this set here that you can very easily either just take the code and pull it into your project, grab the Figma file, or just the SVGs or PNGs, and you can use them as you need, saving you that time from putting together your own icons. We also like to roll out to different conferences and show up there and represent. So this is an icon set that Stephen put together and made available for everyone, and I do hope that we see some more fun icons in the future. Because it's not always just about these really in-depth, kind of serious technical and UX problems. It's also about just being creative together. And I really like our art channel. I always like when that lights up and there's something new posted, because it's usually just super interesting. But not everything is rosy. Sometimes in open source, a lot of things get proposed because anybody can propose anything, basically. And then things sometimes just don't work out. Collaborations kind of fizzle out, or ideas go nowhere. That's totally normal, and we have to accept that. One of our bigger challenges, I think, is and will be for a long time with onboarding. That's partially because we try to be global, and bridging things across cultures and languages is very difficult when kind of the core group, the core community is already in tune in a certain way. I think we can do, I hope we can do better there. And it's also a very technical space. Bitcoin is hard to understand. That the fact that there can be a digital currency is tricky and takes a while to figure out how to work with that, and then design in open source is also kind of a undefined thing. So, I think we have our challenges there, and I do think it kind of takes a whole community effort where somebody has questions or somebody's new and says, hey, how does this work? What can I do? Then we all just kind of help each other. I think that would be the ideal. Now, our design tools are pretty good, and especially in the last few years, we've tackled this real-time collaboration has been really great. Something where we still have a bit of a blind spot is this more anonymous, public, asynchronous collaboration. So just like code and GitHub, people work in public and anybody can contribute, and there's a very well understood review process. We just don't have that yet, and I hope that we can get there, and that will become another unlock for everyone. Design process, already mentioned it before. I think we've gotten better. We've figured out a few things, but there's still just a lot of questions around. And I do hope that we can kind of figure this out. A lot of people come from agency world, or maybe freelance or corporate world. and they know their processes, but open source, open design is kind of its own beast, especially when there are larger groups of people involved in something. And I hope we can not only figure that out, but also make those really good habits where we just always adopt these processes and they don't feel like they become natural to us. That's what I'm hoping for there. Now, sustainability is an interesting one. I think there are several aspects to this. I'll just keep it simple. I don't think we can expect a lot of designers in this space and then ask them to do all this amazing work and then they can't pay their bills afterwards. And a second aspect is I do hope that there's kind of a common understanding that if people chip in with their time and energy and they create these community resources that other companies and people benefit, that they also then chip back in. There's kind of a very balanced give and take. I think there's a really good core right now, and I do hope that that expands further and further. And the biggest challenge is figuring out like what's the impact. Is Bitcoin better now than 2 years ago when the community was started? What difference has it made? So there's a survey being run right now, and I do hope that answers some of those questions and that allows us to be just super impactful in the future. And I think that's kind of what that's open design, right? It's about laying this foundation and then inviting people and then everybody just kind of supporting each other in just the right ways. Everybody brings in ideas and missions and projects and design problems, and if we can all just kind of help each other, that's kind of how it works, and it can take on very, very different shapes, whether it's icons or a logo or something process related or just some creative work that somebody needs feedback on. I think all of that kind of is open design. It's more of a practice in a way than the way something looks or maybe a tool. And it is all about people. I think we always have to come back to that one. We are in a very technical space, I think. Open source can be extremely technical, and we can kind of sometimes be misled a little bit and focus too much on the technical side. But I think it's very good, and I think we should kind of know this already as user experience designer. We try to be user-centered, and open design should also be that very much. And that is it. That's all for today. Thank you for Johns for collaborating on this presentation and everybody else who chipped in on this one. I hope this was interesting. You can find us at bitcoin.design. And now we're going to switch over to Q&A. Thanks again.
Just a second. We'll project the big screen here. Okay. Sorry. Hello. Welcome, join us for Q&A, and then we are opening for question now. However, we kind of need a translations and to help to the audience to get their question across. Just give us a few seconds. They're gonna ask me in Chinese, what's us in Chinese, and then we're gonna help to translate. So it takes some time. Sorry. Okay.
Sorry, there's a bell from the school here over here, but sorry. Now it's ended. Okay, good. So we got one question from the audience, and it's about collaborating when designing. And that is about what happens when, well, we all know like different designers have different design styles. Like I personally like to have like very colorful style, and I know like some designers like black and white stuff. So how do you collaborate in this sense? Like how do different designers and that have different design styles collaborate together? Like, do you have a design system, or do you like do anything to help? Yes.
So I've guided this process several times now, and something that I think works well is when it's like a three-step process. At the beginning, you have a completely open call and ask people to submit ideas, and maybe they can be just text ideas, maybe they're reference designs, a mood board. They just bring in ideas, and then you lay them all out, and you give everyone time to discuss them. You set up a call, you allow everyone to see them and leave comments. And then you try to come with a group, you try to come up with, you pick one or two. Maybe you have 3 ideas, maybe you have 10, and then you try to narrow it down to a second round. And then you try to refine them further. So initially the idea may be rough, and then you maybe try to design, like one page, a landing page, and a logo, and maybe a few other things. And then you maybe have 3 ideas or concepts or directions left. And then you do another round of very public feedback. And then sometimes, people will like certain parts, and then you try to combine them again until you come up with a direction that was kind of the whole group has agreed on. So I think that's a good, that has worked pretty well, especially if you really try to make that collaborative. Johns, did you have any different tips on that?
Yeah, so also when I totally agree with that, and the other part of it is like when new people are coming in, it's important to have these things documented out. Whether you call that documentation a design system or just like some contributing guidelines or something, yeah, like new designers coming in, giving contributions which are kind of like drastically different from the direction that the project is going, because they haven't kind of like gotten those foundations of like what the project has set up. It's going to cause a bit of chaos. So having them documented is like another aspect of that for new people coming in, I would say.
Thank you. I think we have more questions. 你刚刚不是有问一个关于那个，好像他刚刚有讲过类似的，其实他有说用一些 framework，然后可以 duplicate。We are translating. OK， 我觉得可以问就是其他币对不对？山寨版。对啊，像是狗狗币那不然这样问好了，就是除了比特币的话，他们还有对其他币有兴趣吗？可以拿这个拿去做其他币的。对，就是好难哦，你可以帮我？OK, we got it. It's a little bit hard to translate.
We got another question that is a little bit more technical, but you started this Bitcoin community, right? Have you ever thought of like utilizing other crypto coins as well, like focusing on other coins? We know, like we all know, like there are tons of coins in the world right now, and like do you ever think about like leveraging this community to leverage other other crypto coins as well, or have you always been focusing on Bitcoins?
Or maybe it has already been applied. Other people already use it to use your guideline to do it with different currency types of thing. Because there are, people are kind of interested in different types of, I don't know, like currency stuff.
Yeah, so we are 100% focused on Bitcoin because it is, it may not always give the impression, but it's actually, there's a lot going on. And it's, I think from our perspective, it's kind of, it's like the most amazing, most promising project. And it's just so complex that there's not even any time to do anything else. But I know people in and out of the community are involved with all kinds of other projects. I know that the Bitcoin Design Guide and some of the things we do are used because they're completely public for anyone to use, that they're used by various other projects as well. So yeah, but we're just trying to be focused on doing our thing, our Bitcoin thing well, at least for myself and others in the community. They might be involved in other things. That's okay. Johns, what would you like to add to this?
No, I think you said it in the best way that it could have been said. Yeah, it's like there's, there are a lot of other projects around, but I think having a focus and going deep into that area is super important. This technology is very critical. You're dealing with people's money, and the principles in Bitcoin, I think, represent something that goes into the best, like it's the best direction that we have, and that's why I prefer working on it than something else.
Okay. Oh. One more questions. Oh, okay, okay. Oh, okay, okay. 我不会放 Sorry, there are a lot of terms. Oh, okay. Dutch. Okay. Have you guys heard about Dutch coin? Dutch coin. I don't know because the audience, because they think it's based on kind of the same framework of Bitcoin, so they would like your perspective on this topic. Like, what do you?
That's Dogecoin. That's with a cute Shiba Inu dog.
Yeah. Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Dogecoin was created as a joke, actually, by two people. They just wanted to. They made it in a few hours for fun, and they took basically put Bitcoin, the technology, and they made it faster. And I think there are like 100 times as many. I don't know exactly how many, but it was actually created as a joke, and it is really funny. I think it's hilarious, and it was actually pretty successful in bringing a lot of people in the cryptocurrency space. I think on Reddit and whatnot, people just send each other these funny little tokens, right? And I think it's really great as a very funny variation of this. I would not expect this to be kind of a meaningful economic system or thing like the way Bitcoin is, but I enjoy the humor of it and that it kind of exists in this weird internet culture. What do you think, Johns?
Yeah, again, nothing more to add on this one. Yeah, it's important to know that it did start as a joke. But yeah, you know, do you want to put your life savings in this or something? I wouldn't recommend it. If you understand it's a joke, then, you know, play with it. But yeah, Bitcoin has like some very interesting properties. That's why, as I mentioned in the talk, you know, two countries are using Bitcoin and not Dogecoin or some other coin. Central African Republic and El Salvador, they're using Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So this should say enough.
Okay. Let me making sure if they know it's a joke or not. Let me confirm with them. 你们知道这是一个 joke 吗？ Oh, they say yeah. It gets very viral online, and yeah. Oh, okay. They're just curious about what do you think about this. I think they know the differences, and also it's not actual gonna be about like, you know, like anything gonna happen to it.
It's fun. I think it's fun. But yet don't put any meaningful money in it because it's dangerous.
Yeah, and we should definitely have fun with the things that we're doing. Uh, we talk a lot about like creating wallets that aren't so serious, like in the design. It's something that you like. It's all digital money, right? This Bitcoin thing, and people might want to like reflect their personality in their wallets now and stuff. So maybe that's the part where we could get more creative in, and not have it look so like serious all the time. But the money itself needs to be very it needs to work properly. I don't want to be at risk of like losing my money or whatever just because it's some joke and it's not really designed properly or something.
Yeah, I mean, that's, people in Bitcoin, they take this very serious, that we have a responsibility to create a network and user experience where people can actually really store meaningful amounts of money. I mean, that is not fun money. That is their actual income and savings and, things they depend on for a living. So for Bitcoin, there's kind of the seriousness because it is very, very deeply meaningful to people. But, with Dogecoin, yeah, it's a playful, weird, funny internet thing.
Okay. I think we'll have one more questions. Last one.
Right. Thank you again for sharing. I do hope that I could listen to this earlier because I did invest a little bit on Dogecoin and then like mostly lost them. But yeah, coming back to the topic, because when you shared the presentation, it seems like there are a lot of community works that you came up with together, right? Like there are some icons, there are some logos, there are some design stuff, there are some prototypes. And I'm just wondering, how do you extend the use of all these design resources that the community member came up with? Like, are there any developers in the community that could help to bring these ideas in to life? Or like, how do you leverage the use?
Yeah, so we've had, the community is 2 years old now, and we started with very little, right? It was just a few people getting together and with some ideas. And I think that most of these resources simply came out of doing work in the space. They're kind of byproducts. So we were designing some interfaces and realized, okay, we keep looking for icons. And then some of us decided to just put this icon set together as kind of a, as a resource. So same with, the stickers that we put together and other things. The guide also it's like a byproduct of the actual work that's being done. But it requires some people that are in this space that kind of regularly pay attention and then take what's happening anyways and bundle that up into good resources. Family's in the background here. And create those resources and kind of maintain them and make them usable for everyone else. So there need to be a few people that are kind of like archivists in a way. And then they also need to make sure that those resources are available in a way that other people can easily build on top of them. Like that people are around to answer questions, that there's documentation, that there are things people can contribute on GitHub or Figma or whatever it is. It's a decent amount of work to kind of accumulate these resources over time. And it requires some patience too, to just kind of document and archive and organize and answer questions. But I feel like that's one of the most valuable things we can do to build these resources over time, because it then makes all the other work on top of it so much easier and kind of better by default, because you don't start from scratch. You start with something that's already pretty good.
Exactly. That's the spirit of open source. Jones, do you have anything to add on?
No, I'm sorry. There was a vehicle passing by, so I couldn't hear some of the questions. But,
Okay.
the last question, but I'm pretty sure Christoph handled it well.
Okay. I think there are no more questions. Do we have any more? Okay. Thank you so much for your participations. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much. And we're at bitcoin.design. You can find our Slack if you'd like to continue the conversation.
Yes.
Super happy. Please reach out. Love to chat.
Yes,
Thank
we
you
will.
for having us.
Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate because this type of topic we have never really had people talk about at Open Design Track. It's pretty brand new and exciting, and thanks for bringing the vitalities into our Open Design community in Taiwan. And we hope we can have other collaboration in the future, or maybe have you guys join us in person next year. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for your time. Thank you so
Thank you so
much.
much.
Yep.
Bye
Thank you,
bye.
everyone.
Hảo? 觉得怎么样？我怎么觉得刚刚那个有点尴尬？我们是不是问错问题啊？
对啊，我应该问错问题。
他们是有点笑，有点在笑我们。
我可能问错问题。
应该是我们的都不懂 Bitcoin 在干嘛吧？因为我不太敢问，因为我不知道要怎么问。
因为对啊，那个我刚刚说那个狗狗币，它就是本来只是民营起家，就大家只是创造出来，对对对，创造出来民营而已，然后结果就被人炒起来了。
所以你听得懂吗？
就大概听得懂而已。
就是他们在做 Bitcoin 的东西。
你说那他们吗？对啊对啊，我比较不了解的是为什么他们做的就是日历可以跟 Bitcoin 结合的意义在哪里？就是如果没有 Bitcoin 的差别在哪里？因为没有 Bitcoin 也可以做一个日历的，就是他们是怎么？因为我刚刚看到有一个 talent，就他们的 project， 对吧？然后我就是就算没有 Bitcoin 也可以做一个日历，但是他做的那个 project 到底跟 Bitcoin 有什么相关性？
他那个日历是他们合作的，比如说是他们，比如说我今天做什么，在哪时候会试出，是这样吗？
我不确定啊，刚刚没有看到，
刚刚有注意到。
但是我猜一个是，我觉得一个是你刚刚讲的那个，就是单纯只是日历，就是直接做出来，然后
宣传 Bitcoin。
对。
比较像是比如说我跟他一起合作这个 Bitcoin 的专案，然后我跟他讲说，比如说这周二我们会做什么，然后就是进步，我们的这个 Bitcoin 专的进步，然后日历的分享，也就是说我们一起在做 Bitcoin 这个 project 的时候，我们一起合作协作，我们的进度报表，有点像是这样，我觉得应该是这样，是这样吧？对，我有点忘记他的，因为他 share 蛮多东西，而且其实我听不太懂的部分是因为我根本不太懂这块，所以我根本不太敢问问题，所以我因为我不想要问一些错的。我觉得他们，我觉得应该有。哦，没关系，我尽力了，这个 Bitcoin 不是我的擅长。好，谢谢你们今天来参加，那你们有任何的问题吗？
没有。对了，是我还有听说你的工作是做 open source 的，跟
我吗？
对啊。
哦，我没有，我是那个 Coast Cup 的志工。
哦，所以不是跟 Bitcoin 太大的关系。
万一我这样，我今天还回答那么烂，我就是没有问任何的问题，我就是应该是被那个 fire 吧。
他们 open source 就是 Bitcoin 的 open source，他们是要一起开发。
他们应该是做一些 guideline，然后让大家加入 Bitcoin 的世界。
他们的社团主要在宣传 Bitcoin，就是让大家的应用。
对，就是比如说，对，就比如说我们都不认识 Bitcoin 嘛，然后因为他们的设计的 guideline 啊，然后就可以去，不管是开发或者是买 Bitcoin，就是加入 Bitcoin 这样。所以他们是设计师，但是他们是帮忙建立一些，比如说文件也好啦，或是任何的协作的东西，就是让人家看了就可以听到你说 Bitcoin 到底在干嘛，然后就可以去投资，或者去买东西之类，买 Bitcoin。
就像刚刚有那个贴纸之类的。
对，贴纸是他们去宣传，比如说，你要不要来加入？你知道 Bitcoin，那你可能也会 design 的话，那你可以来加入这个协作。
比赛是美术方面的还是城市方面的？感觉是美术。
比较设计。对，比较设计。
好，谢谢。
谢谢。
以来，然后